Firestone actually to let them do it.
And you still need to have the safety crew and observers around the track to even do something like that, because even not at pace, these are treacherous conditions, and bad things can happen and cars can roll off. So we'll see if we see anyone out on track in a moment. Obviously, Team Penske thinks so. They wouldn't have put the cars back on pit lane if they didn't think that the track was going to become available.
Yeah,
so.
Much different weather. It changed quickly overnight. The first day I got here, Sunday night, it was quite warm and humid on Sunday, and then it started to cool down yesterday, and today got very cold. But tomorrow, it's looking like maybe 60 degrees for tomorrow, so that'll be good weather for tomorrow.
And Thursday morning actually looks extremely good, so maybe they will do something over there, but we don't know that yet. Kevin, sometimes the teams put cars in pit lane as well to actually they simulate some pit stops, not like a hot stop, but to get the guys, it's the first time everybody's back on track. Sometimes you have a new mechanic that you move from the rear of the car to the front, so they try to get the people used to it. We used to do that all the time. Just doesn't mean that you're in pit lane you want to go out.
Okay.
But you can get the connecting cable for the telemetry if it's working properly. All the all the gadgets in the car, timing stand. The teams they do a lot of work over the winter improving their timing stands, their TVs, where they're gonna get the information. So today is really the first day that they put the whole circus you want to call together.
Again, that's Tony Kanaan, 17-time IndyCar driver that we'll see active again in the number 14 on the ovals this year. Paul Tracy, a 31-time winner. Both are former IndyCar champs. I'm Kevin Lee. Jake Query is on pit lane. Katie Hargett has been with us throughout the day. Thank you for joining us for day one of the 2020 season for the NTT IndyCar Series. The forecast is better tomorrow, and we are scheduled for more activity tomorrow morning. Everything's a little bit subject to change, so we'll wait for an updated schedule depending on what gets done or doesn't get done here today. And for some of these drivers and teams, they had drivers sharing the car, like your number 14.
Correct.
Like the 31. So that's significant, and they have to decide, all right, who gets this extra time?
Yeah, more cars showing up in the pit lane, so maybe we will see a car go out on track here pretty soon. But
I saw on the schedule, PT, they had today between, I think, 4:30 and 5:30, they would open for hot stops. I wouldn't probably discount that they might anticipate that and let people do some of that too. I don't know. I mean, that could be an option, a possibility as well.
So when IndyCar comes back here for the April 26th race at Circuit of the Americas, there will be one difference from last year's IndyCar debut on this track, and that's turn 19. You were in this race, and there were no track limits last year, and that was a topic of conversation, and we'll see a little bit of video from last year. But this year, you're going to have to keep it more on the track. Tell me about this experience of going off, why people did it, and then what are some of the reasons why they're going to limit that this year?
IndyCar's reason for let us do that is because they had no way of controlling it that weekend. It was unexpected, so they have no way of controlling if somebody was 2 wheels off, 4 wheels off. It was going to be hard to set a penalty, and they didn't want to do that and put our lives, I would say, in the hands of a steward. So they went back. We and the Drivers Association, we talked to IndyCar, to Jay Fry and his team. This was not fine. Obviously, it was a huge crash between Rosenquist and I don't recall who else, but I think it was one of the Aero cars. And because one was trying to come into the pits, the other one had the track limit. So this year, they introduced finally, there's a timing line. There is a little, they add a little over the curb, like an extra bump.
Sausage,
a sausage.
We call it a sausage.
But there is a timing line there with a white, it's a white paint that your car, it's the same way they do it on pit out. If half of your car is on top of it, you're fine. If you have 4 wheels over, your lap is going to be disallowed.
You ever bottomed out on a sausage?
It's
no fun.
I have to say that is no fun, and the car doesn't like it either.
I think it was James Hinchcliffe, by the way, that came together with Rosenquist last year early in that race. So that'll be one thing and one difference to watch next year. How'd you like this track? We've been looking forward to coming here. We've obviously seen Formula One and other racing series. It was the first time for IndyCar.
Fun track, extremely fast. Huge sequences of left and right corners. a lot of places to pass. I mean, a lot of places to pass. A lot of hard braking that they can actually pass. And I think the bumpy part of the track was extremely tough. I guess this year they paved, so obviously I haven't been around in an IndyCar, but I love the track. It was fun. It's fast.
There's a lot of opportunity for over-under. If a guy gets in on you and runs wide, you can square him up and get back underneath of him. So that's what was exciting. We saw a lot of great battles with Pato and all kinds of drivers last year in the race where guys would go sliding in and then slide wide of the apex, and then the guy would get back underneath of him. It just was good, hard racing. And I got to say that probably one of the bravest passes of the year was that outside pass that Pato O'Ward made around the outside of that big long carousel. Was probably one of the most breathtaking passes of the year for me.
And they repaved that part, so actually this year I can see actually even more of those moves out there.
Jake's mic is live.
Sorry, guys, the camera was up. I don't know.
We're going to hear from Jake Query coming up in just a moment to get an update on what kind of conditions we're looking at from Firestone and more, and to see if we'll see some on-track activity a little later on today. And Jake is ready. Go ahead, Jake.
Kevin, thanks. We are here with Kara Adams of Firestone. And first off, it's a new title, right? So typically I just say Kara Adams, who is the director of race engineering for Firestone, or along those lines. But the off-season has been good to you.
Yeah, now we've taken over both race engineering and manufacturing, so all of that's under one team. We have a great team of technicians in Akron, Ohio that design and build these tires. So the design team and the manufacturing team are now combined, and it's actually a great structure for us.
Now, one thing I know that you are not, and that is a meteorologist, but that's not to say that you're not playing one today, because you're keeping a close eye on it. Where do we stand right now in terms of this test and what Firestone determines is necessary in order to see cars back out on track?
Yeah, right now we're only at 46 degrees ambient and 48 degrees track, which is shy of our 100 rule. So we generally aim for about 100 combined. Road courses were a little bit more flexible, more than so than what we would be at ovals. So we're waiting on a couple more degrees at least to get out there running.
One of the big storylines here, Kara Adams of Firestone with me, is obviously the windscreen. Fans are very excited to see how they look. How the drivers want to see how they feel. From a tire standpoint as well, crazy as it sounds, but the aerodynamic changes that might take place to these cars, does that affect what Firestone is looking at in the rubber?
Yeah, Jake, that's a very, very good question. It does very much. So what we look at road courses like this is the additional work that goes into the front of the car. So you see the aero screen and you think about the drag, but what people might not think about is the additional weight and where it moves the weight. So the weight's higher, about 15 millimeters higher, and it's about 60 pounds more, and it's more on the front of the car. So it puts more work into the front of the tires. We'll see more changes when you get to the ovals than what we have here at the road courses.
What sort of things, once we do get underway here, Kara, and again, we're kind of waiting for Mother Nature to participate, to help out in that participation, but what things are you most curious in seeing, and maybe what did Firestone do in the off season that now you can put to work?
Yeah, what we would really like to see is the cars running in traffic in a race or in a race-like situation. So we were able to test this aero screen at Barber Motorsports Park, and we got some pretty good data, and it was rainy conditions just like that. So we got some raining conditions running, but we would really like to see a lot of cars running at the same time. That's what we're missing so far in this test.
When you look at a track like this at Circuit of the Americas, it's not the first time, obviously, that these cars have been on this track. Do you just strictly kind of tear off and look at the compound from a year ago, or do the tracks themselves change and you have to kind of alter with them as well?
Well, in this case, this track changed quite a bit, because if you remember the coverage of the Formula One race, a lot of the teams were complaining about the bumpiness. So the people here at Circuit of the Americas did some repaving, some serious regrinding and repaving over the off season. So when we came here, we're about the third time that we've actually run on this pavement was with Indy cars. There's been a couple of club cars up until then. So there's some new pavement out there. So not only is it a year-to-year change, but there's also a lot of new pavement change.
Lastly, let me ask you, Kara Adams of Firestone here is our guest. I know that since it's become the sole tire manufacturer for the NCT IndyCar Series, there has never been an accident that was determined to be because of a fault at Firestone without an outside condition. Safety is so paramount and so important to the company. Is that a 365-day-a-year experimentation that you're doing to keep these drivers safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Safety is first and foremost among everything. So throughout all of our team, all of our tire builders, all of our engineers, safety is number one. So when we're out here working with the teams, That's number one. We want to make the cars go fast. We want to make it exciting, but always safety first.
All right, I appreciate the time. 3 degrees, that's what we need about that, right? 3 more degrees, something like that?
Yep, that's what we're working on.
All right, we're going to work on getting it warm here, Kevin.
All right, get out the blower, and we get out there on track and see if we can create 2 or 3 degrees.
But you know what? You know what's funny? So they don't have a way to measure the entire track. So the way they do it, they get the heat gun and they go in pit lane and they put the heat gun in pit lane. And if the pit lane is fine, they let us go. So which is funny because it might be 50 degrees in pit lane, but then you get at the end of the back straightaway where it has a little bit more shade. Obviously, it's not sunny today.
Yeah.
And it's 35 over there, so you kind of get your hands full, which is funny, this rule, the 50-50 rule.
Yeah.
That is. But are you guys going around measuring the entire racetrack?
Exactly.
Because obviously it's not happening. So
Let's talk about some of the things Jake and Kara were talking about. They were speaking specifically about the changes that Firestone needs to make with the aero screen. Let's talk about from the driver's perspective and from the engineering perspective. What is going to be different from that aspect of preparing the cars?
Tony's more current than me, but the aerodynamics on these cars are so sensitive, and with the aero screen, it's going to make the car more aerodynamic through the wind. But these cars, like I said, are so sensitive that when you make a front wing adjustment, not only does that give you more front downforce, it also takes away from some rear because it knocks the wind up over the back wing. So I'm interested to see what changes these teams will have to make, not only on a road course, but on a super speedway. What effect will that screen do to the downforce on the back wing at, say, Indianapolis or Texas?
yeah, I mean, to be honest, you think about PT just mentioned, right? So you're adding a windscreen, you're going to add more drag to the car, but also the wind will flow in that area. It will flow a little freer. So basically, you're cutting the wind a little better. But that affects the rear wing of the car, like he said. But also the biggest thing you talk about is the weight that added to the car. Firestone had to make adjustments to the tires because you're adding a 50-pound piece. And also, you saw Kara talking about the center of gravity and how you're adding the weight to the top of the car. So for people there at home that have no idea, let's say we're going to go work out together, the three of us. We're different heights. Let's say we're all the same height. And I'll give you a weight vest. But PT's going to hold the weight vest on his feet. You're going to hold the weight vest in your waist, and I'm going to hold it on top of my head. And we all go for a run. Our bodies will react different. So basically, you're adding a lot of weight to the top of a car that we're not used to have that weight there. So the setups are going to have to be changed.
Spring rates,
the spring rates,
everything.
dampers. So it is. That's why everybody's so eager to run, because it is the same car. It has a much cooler windscreen on, but the behavior, it's going to be completely different.
By the way, we're watching onboard footage from this morning here at Circuit of the Americas with Joseph Newgarden to get a little bit of an idea of what he's seeing inside the cockpit. So where do they start? Do they start with the setups last year, or have they already anticipated it needs to be a little bit different?
So you got to start from what you know. So basically, let's say today we're in COTA, so we're going to pick our best setup that we had in COTA. But the engineers, obviously, Chevy and Honda already simulate their cars on the wind tunnel. So we know some numbers from the manufacturers. They will come. They have a pretty good group of people that will come to the teams and say, here, those are the numbers that we found out. This is the difference. The engineers did the calculations on the weight. So basically, let's say, for example, you add 50 pounds to the car that had a 1,300-pound spring, it's heavier now, it's going to compress, so we got to go up 100 pounds on the spring. And by doing that, you're probably going to have to raise the car, the right head of the car, because you're heavier, you're going to be touching more. All those compensations and calculations can't be done at the race shop. And PT can help me on that. I mean, how many times you have engineers with theories that this is going to work great, and you come to a racetrack and it's completely different.
Nothing is like the real thing. And then we have Jimmy Johnson there with a headset on. Still there, still hanging out, not getting to see a lot of action today. It would have been nice if the conditions were better so he could see these things run at full capability, but he's listening in. There's Pato O'Ward next to him, watching.
So when we talked this morning, we said he's not here the week of the Daytona 500 if he's not serious about this. he's not hanging around
For
all
6 hours.
day when the likelihood of a car at pace
he's
is not that strong unless he's seriously
He's
thinking
not
about
missing
this.
a workout, a bike ride, or a run for no reason.
Oh, well, he just did a half marathon yesterday, so I guess he's taking the day off today. But
Now, you're going to be in the car coming up on Friday at Texas Motor Speedway with some of the rookies.
actually, just as a rookie test, so I am not. Dalton's going to be in the 14. So my first time in the car will be our open test in Richmond in April.
Okay.
I'll get you guys the dates. I got to check. But it will be Richmond, and then I will do the open test in Indy as well, which is before the 500 in April. We have the 2 dates there.
Got drivers in cars here.
Well,
There's
3
some cars,
degrees will.
There's some drivers sitting in the cars here, and
It's
might
warmer
get some
in the car
action.
than outside,
We
isn't
might
it?
get some action going here pretty soon.
I was talking to some drivers yesterday, and some, as of yesterday afternoon, had not even climbed into a car with the aero screen yet. They were going to do it for the first time here yesterday evening. So, and some of the teams just got them installed over the weekend.
I haven't because we haven't got our kits until. So I had to lead to let Bourdais and Dalton do it. So Richmond Open Test is March 25th. Kev, will be my first time in
March
the car.
March 25th. Okay.
Yep, and then we'll do the Indy Open Test, which is right before it's April, at some point. So.
And Ed Carpenter is the veteran that's going to be on track on Friday. He's listed on the release I have from Texas, along with Oliver Askew, Alex Pillow, and Renus VK, and a TBD driver from Team Penske is also scheduled.
You know who that is.
Coming up on Friday. All right, let's hear from one of the young drivers back again for another year in IndyCar with a brand new team with Jake.
You know, it's so funny, Kevin, because Pato O'Ward, you are correct, young driver, but at the same time, it feels like you've been around for 5 years because we obviously have seen what you have done coming up through in lights and then dipping your toe in and out. We didn't know what would happen, and here you are. First off, just take me through the mindset of finally having it secure and knowing that you're here.
To be fairly honest, it feels like home. I'm really excited to get this year underway, and it's nice. It's obviously it's already an established team with Schmidt-Peterson, but I think now partnering with McLaren as well as our biggest supporter, Arrow Electronics. It's going to be really cool to grow with them. I've got a few races under my belt, but I want to grow with the team. We all have the same mindset going into the championship. We all have the same goal, or goals, I guess we could say. We want to be champions in the future. We want to win races. We want to be strong challengers everywhere we go. I'm happy that I'm here with them, and it's a huge opportunity for me, and very grateful for what is presented in front of me right now.
Obviously, it's funny because you're the veteran of the team here, right? I mean, you can call Oliver Askew the kid, I guess, because like yourself, he comes up with success in lights. How challenging will it be to have two young guys feeding off one another as opposed to maybe having somebody who has been around a while and is that veteran you can lean on?
Yeah, I mean, many people emphasize, the veteran, having a veteran really helps. But from my experience, until you actually try it is when you actually will learn. Everybody can tell you as much as they want, as much information, but you need to race through it. You need to go through it to really learn and to really feel or to really know what certain things feel like if you're in doubt of something. So I think for me, just the biggest help was just getting those races under my belt. Going into an IndyCar race now, I know what to expect. And just all that race knowledge, you can't buy it. People can't tell you what you're going to feel because every race is different.
Which is interesting because you have Jimmy Johnson here with you, right? And so you can say to him, like, hey, wait a minute, like you haven't actually, been in one of these, right? Now, Pato was just talking about with two young guys, getting in the car and feeling a car is a lot different than just being on the headsets. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the view from inside the car, feeling things, sensing things, that's where it's all at. I think things slow down when you're in the car and much more intuitive and natural. And you probably overthink it out of the car, listening and watching. But with my experience here recently, I have 3 young teammates, And it's amazing how we all help each other and all learn and grow. And I know these guys feel like they've got a lot to learn, but they're going to bring so much to this team and so much to the sport that don't blink, because they're going to be at the top of the grid at any time.
You've obviously been a supporter and a fan of this side, this series of racing as well. Coming out here and being able to just kind of hang out and take it in for you, are you teaching or are you learning, or both?
No, I'm definitely learning. This is a totally different world than what I've been used to, but it's a world that I dreamed of racing in when I was a kid, growing up in San Diego. My heroes were guys that raced in the Indy 500. I'd go to the Long Beach Grand Prix and watch, hang out, and wanted to be, in a car going by. So for me, this is a learning experience, and this is also kind of in a bucket list category for me to come, see these cars, be around these cars, and 2021's open for me, and who knows what opportunities might come along in IndyCar or sports car or back to my off-road roots. So I'm just kind of taking it all in and seeing what comes of it.
I know there was a time, and correct me, Jimmy Johnson, if I'm wrong in this, there was a time where you had talked about open wheel, and yet from a safety standpoint, you said, well, maybe that time was when I was a younger man. The beard's a little more white here. 2021's open, like you said. The windscreen is there. Things have changed a little bit. Has your mindset as well?
It has. I think I've been pretty open-minded to road course racing in general. The windscreen certainly does elevate the safety on all tracks and forms of courses that IndyCar competes on. I do feel like the Indy 500 option and some of the ovals are behind me. I think that window has closed, but there's a lot of other great racing that I'd be open to if the right opportunity came along.
Appreciate it, and we let you enjoy it today and take everything in, and maybe we'll see you here in a year.
Never know.
I appreciate it. Jimmy Johnson. Paddle, let me ask you one more thing. He was talking about the windscreen. You've tested with it in heat and humidity, not necessarily in this cool, wet air. How was it? How did it feel different?
It definitely feels quite a bit different. It really depends on if it's humid, if it's cold, if it's hot. There's obviously some things that we have to work on, together with IndyCar and PPG and basically everybody that was into this Aeroscreen project to get everything finalized and perfect. But I think it's a great job for a first shot at it. And I'm very impressed with the field of vision. I really thought, having a curved, basically bulletproof shield in front of you, you would probably see, some, I think it's called imparity or just something. Some things probably wouldn't look the same as if the screen wasn't there. But everything seems to be identical.
Does it have tear-offs? I know it sounds crazy,
yes, it
but
does. Yeah.
I can't get one over my phone without the bubbles on it. How do they get it on?
I don't know. My guys did a fantastic job. I mean, I can't even tell if there's a tear-off on there.
So it's another pit strategy, though, when you come in for a pit stop, right? To get
definitely. I mean, I think where there's really going to be trouble is if it's raining and then drying, and there's dirt on the track and stuff. That's where it's going to get pretty heavy. And if you're in the middle of the stint and you're struggling to see, then you're going to have to swallow it, and you're just going to have to continue going until you can get a tear-off off. So that's going to be a work in progress. I mean, we're not going to know exactly how things will fall until we start racing or until we get into those situations. But I mean, as of now, it's been really good, and it's definitely a huge step into the driver's safety.
Certainly appreciate the time, and best of luck once we get out there. Hopefully we get out there today or tomorrow, whatever it might be, but enjoy it, all right?
Yeah, we're all aching to get back into the car, so thank you very much.
That's Pato O'Ward. Kevin?
All right, thank you, Jake. Let's talk more about the tear-offs and the logistics of that, TK. What are we talking about here?
So we went through an entire process of Race Optics is a very famous company that does a bunch of tear-offs, and usually what they do for the visor is actually they make them very thin, and for us, for the 500-mile races, we actually used to have 12.
10, 12 stack, yeah.
So they do a six stack, and you do probably, put 6 on the left and 6 on the right, so the guy that does your helmet tells you where to start peeling it off. It's the same thing with the windscreen. So now the teams are adding an extra guy on a pit stop because we're going to have those on the windscreens.
Yeah, you do not want one of those to get away from the guy tearing it off and end up on the pit lane. You tear off 25 of those screens.
And they're big.
And they're big, and they end up falling on the ground, and then some guy drives along, and it ends up in his radiator, and then he's overheating.
On
right?
top of
so
that,
there's a lot of things that can happen now.
You leave a big piece of that on the floor, you're doing a burnout, you spin.
Yeah.
Because it's such a a contact patch. And also, my question,
another variable, like you think of the amount of times we see a wheel nut just get away from a guy on a pit stop and how much time that costs you. So if you're adding another guy to the pit sequence to get a tear off these cars, it's going to add another dynamic.
Now, I haven't seen anything official from IndyCar yet, but Chip Ganassi Racing Managing Director Mike Hull tweeted in response to a question today that, as you said, Tony, there is going to be an extra crewman allowed over the wall. He is not allowed on the pit lane surface until the car comes to a stop, similar to like sports car racing. He can be on top of the wall, and that's the only thing he does, is basically a driver assist.
Which is totally doable, but then you're opening a window for different rules, because now you're going to have the official trying to look, not just the four guys are changing the tire and refueling. If you stop on your mark and if you hit a fuel holes or a tire hose, then this guy put his foot in pit lane before your car stops.
Think about this. You have a guy jumping off the pit wall. You have a guy doing the back tire, the front tire, and a fueler standing all in the same spot where he's trying to come off the wall. So will that guy have to run around the car to get the tear off? Because you got tear offs on both sides. There's a split down the middle of the windscreen. So there's a tear off on both sides of the chassis there. So he's got to be able to get not just one, but two tear offs off the car.
And you have 10 seconds to do it. If you decide that it's not a splash and go and you're going to 3 laps to go in the race at the Indy 500 and we all have to pit, what would you do? You leave your driver not seeing correctly because you don't want to waste time because you're doing fuel only, or you actually take the time to peel the tear off?
And I think I read that also the car needs to be up off the ground on the jacks for him to do the tear off. So these are things that will be officially confirmed and released in the coming days, but very fascinating stuff. All right, what we're going to do now here, while we wait to see if we see some activity in the upcoming moments on track, let's do kind of a virtual pit walk and let you take a look at the 2020 looks, the liveries of these cars. And that's the championship cars. We're starting at pit out right now with Joseph Newgarden in the number 1 as his right as the defending champion, Hitachi Penske Chevy. His teammate, Simon Pagenaud, in the number 22, bright yellow Menards. Broadcasters love that car because it's easy to spot.
What do they call it? Chartreuse? Is that the color?
I don't know.
I think it's chartreuse.
I've called it yellow.
Yeah, well, it's not yellow. There's a specific name for it. Very, very famous color.
A yellow marker.
Highlighter.
Hey, I just have to mention something. Ed Carpenter just texted me complaining that I told the guys in the radio that at the broadcast that he's old. He's up 40, so we said he was 38. So I told him we corrected. So, Ed, it was my bad. Rookie mistake.
There's Will Power. He's strapped in, ready to go in the number 12 Verizon Chevy.
Have you guys noticed they're not using the air vent in the top? They have it, but it's not connected because obviously it's cold.
It's very cold. Today's a day that you want to stay warm.
This is a newcomer to IndyCar. This is 2-time and defending Virgin Australia Supercars champ Scott McLaughlin. And one of the rules to participate in this test is you must do at least one race this season. So he tested at Sebring with the team in January, and it was announced just a few days ago that he is going to be entered in at least one race. He'll be on the road course race in May at Indianapolis.
That was smart from IndyCar because basically teams that have the means and the cars will put somebody else to test just to get a free test day. So basically, if you're here to test, you have to race. Although, PT, I would like for us to find out because I am not sure Felipe Nars or Sete Camara are actually racing this year. So Carlin got the free pass because they're not adding a third car, like a team that had a full. So they actually allowed to test drivers.
Correct.
Because that car will be racing, but doesn't have to be with the drivers that are here this weekend.
Scott Dixon, the number 9 PNC Bank Honda, similar look to last year. There minor changes to all of the liveries, and with the aero screen, everything has a fresh new look, and that's one of the things we wanted to see is what
the
visuals
there
look like.
See that's 1, 2, 3 here.
Yep,
that's it. So basically, he has 4, and that's it. So basically, every time you come in, if you need it, they're probably going to ask you on the radio Do you want it off, or do you don't want it off? Maybe to gain time or not. So, but that's a good point, PT. The guy's going to have to walk around, and that is another safety issue as well, right? Because he's going to have to run around the guy that is in the back, the air jack, the rear tire, or if he's coming from the front tire guys.
Which may be why the rule has to be up on the jacks, because they don't want a guy darting in front of a car while they
my
release.
question is,
A driver's initial reaction is when the car drops, you go. So I think they want to keep the car. I'm speculating now, but I think they would want to keep the car on the jacks before that work is done, to eliminate the factor of a guy. The car drops, driver wants to leave.
But on top of that, we don't pit in our pit stops. We don't pit all together we don't have the same time of pit stop. So how about this guy's running and somebody's pulling out of the pits? So those are the things that I was part of the Drivers Association, and we talk about safety all the time. When we bring something that it's safer, it always creates a consequence. We always need to think about the consequences of.
Sure.
And you wait and you say, okay, this is much safer, and we have to figure something else out. But this is something that I'm pretty sure Jay and his team are trying to figure out now.
This is going to add a very new dynamic to the racing and the strategy, because we've seen now the standard of pit stops is 6 to 7 seconds is what you have to do to be competitive with these cars. And adding another guy over the wall, tear-offs, the athleticism of the mechanics to work with another guy, because they practice this stuff over and over and over, and they have everything down to a science of exactly how they want a pit stop to go, and now you're adding in a new dynamic.
Well, NASCAR has really gone the route of hiring specific pit crew guys that are former college athletes. In IndyCar, the pit crew guys are also mechanics, so they must be able to do both. But as we saw Alexander Rossi's car, and here's Colton Herta's car. And by the way, we're going to have on board on our show tomorrow from Alexander Rossi, so look forward to that. This crew member that his task is simply as the driver assist, you're going to look for the quickest guy you can find. You're going to be doing shuttle runs and so forth.
The guy who's going to have to run around the car and pull those tear-offs is not going to be your 230, 40-pound fueler guy. So
you know what I'm wondering? Is he going to step on the side pot and just do it from the top? You know what I mean? 2 feet, one on each side of the side pot, and peel out and jump back on?
Good.
Instead to run around? That would be quicker. If you get an agile guy, that's the way to do it.
Does it impact the tire changers if someone is on the car while it's on the jacks to possibly jostle it a bit and cause him to have an issue placing the tire?
If he's going to be on the jack, for sure that's not going to happen, because it's very wobbly when you do that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I assume you couldn't do that there. Here's Marco Andretti's car, one of 5 official for Andretti Autosport, although there are different partners involved in the 88 and 98 cars. The 98 official entry is the U.S. Concrete Curb Andretti Herta Autosport with Marco Andretti and Curb Agajanian.
That's the longest team name I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The 88 is Andretti Harding Steinbrenner Autosports, officially merged into the group. And then Jack Harvey, also with Meyer Shank Racing, has a relationship with Andretti Technologies to provide engineering support and damper technology. This is Zach Veach in the number 26 Gainbridge Honda. And I believe I've heard that there is an engine fired somewhere on pit lane, so you may see someone give it a go here in a moment.
Helmet blower is connected on Zach Veach right there. You can see that hose that comes right there. On the other side of the car, you'll see there's an inlet, like a little NACA duct, which forces the air into that hose. So another factor of that is you're going to get a lot of rubber in a long race is going to get scooped into that system. It's going to end up in the top of your helmet because there's holes in the top of the helmet. There's a little plastic cover that goes over top where the hose connects to, but in the helmet there's holes drilled in the top. So any debris, small bits of rubber and dirt, things like that are going to get in that system, and they're going to end up on the top of your head, on top of your balaclava. So that'll be another interesting
And
dynamic.
the IndyCar rule is that hose has to be the opposite side where the fuel tank is. Basically, some of the tracks we actually fuel the car from the other side, I would say. So basically, we'll be switching sides every time.
Okay.
We have to refuel the car from whatever, the left or the right. So basically today, obviously, we're fueling from the left. Some tracks refuel from the right. That's going to have to be moved. It has to be the opposite side of the fueler.
Well, you don't want fuel spilling into that or a potential fire starting, or
Correct.
fire going up through the hose. So
Well, I had that in Edmonton.
That's
we
right.
caught on fire and came inside my helmet. It burned my nose, which is the biggest part of my face.
Oh, come
on.
Here's one more look. We haven't really seen this car up close. That was that's
Santino's.
Santino Ferrucci's car is way back in the background behind the Andretti Autosport cars.
No, those are the 4 Andretti's, and that's the Santino's.
Actually, that was off screen. We're looking at TV window.
Yeah.
That's actually in a monitor in our studio. Hey, for our IndyCar fans, we appreciate you joining us today. And if you want to get more involved, check out IndyCar Nation, the official fan club of the NTT IndyCar Series. You can go to IndyCarNation.com for more information, benefits like behind-the-scenes tours. You might get to hang out with someone like Tony Kanaan at a race this year, merchandise, tickets, and plenty of other opportunities with IndyCar Nation. All right, we're told that in 5 minutes, the track is going to become available.
big opportunity here for Santino for his sophomore year, his second year in the IndyCar Series. Now he has to become a team leader of the team. He's got a rookie teammate. It was a bit of a shock move, Tony, when this team let go Sebastian Bourdais with all of his experience and championships, and now Santino has kind of said yesterday in the press day with us, he says, "Look, I need to know, I need to figure out that I need to step up and be more accurate, be more precise, be more of a team leader. I can't rely on Sebastian to give the feedback. I need to raise my game."
It's a very, very risky position to be, because obviously last year he did an awesome job. He was actually ahead of Seb in the championship. He was actually running pretty strong, but then you have always that, experienced guy that actually finds the stuff and you benefit from it, and you're able to translate and go quicker than the guy. Now they're expecting him to be the team leader, and that's something that can weigh a lot, especially on a young driver like that.
And his teammate, this is Alex Palou, 22-year-old from Spain. Had a chance to visit with him yesterday. Bright, very confident young man. He was third in the 2019 Japanese Super Formula Series with a win and 3 poles. And this is a new partnership also to IndyCar. It's Dale Coyne Racing with Team Go. That's won Le Mans before. Roger Yasukawa is actually the sporting director. You might remember Roger as an IndyCar driver, has been a spotter for Takuma Sato for a while. He's helping with this program and will be a spotter, certainly on the ovals, for Alex Palou.
He had a test last year, and he went very, very quick in his test. So he's coming in with some hype behind him that he's a very quick driver.
There's the car of Pato O'Ward we saw just a little while ago with Jake. By the way, when we go green here in about 3 minutes, it's going to be another 10-minute installation session. So we'll see how the track conditions are and if we can get a little more heat in the track and somehow get it to warm up a couple of more degrees to release them full go. So installation session means in and out laps, and it's always critical, but more critical for the first test session with the aero screens. It's a big deal today.
Depending on the rule, you can only do a one-time buy. And obviously, you guys saw some lap times being recorded because the timing line, it's not a start-finish line. It's coming actually right before pit lane, where that the short chute is between the track limits that we showed previously. So that's why some guys actually see recording in time.
So we saw the 5 and the 7, the Aero McLaren SP cars. There's Oliver Askew out of the car for the moment, chatting with Billy Vincent. The way to distinguish those cars, there's more blue. It almost looks like a purple on the 7 car of Askew. So they've got the papaya orange for McLaren. They've got the black for Aero. And then there's, no bueno. Your first day as a full-fledged IndyCar driver is spent wearing
as a rookie, you're going to a team that has a big name, big history in racing. Your car is beautiful. They do this huge unveiling and they click it's a torture.
There's the blue on the end plates for the front and rear wings. There's Connor Daly's ride, the number 20 U.S. Air Force Chevrolet for Ed Carpenter Racing. Ed will be in the number 20 on the ovals. And there are strong rumors that Connor might end up doing the entire season split between two teams.
Yeah, he has 4 races that he's not doing because obviously he's doing Indianapolis, but Ed's actually feeling for the ovals. So the 4 ovals, Max is not doing the ovals at Carlin, only doing the 500. So there's a big rumor, and I would say you spoke to him, and
I did.
He was evasive, but he couldn't deny it.
He started off with, I'm not sure where that came from, although I have had some conversations with the team. But he said it hasn't really been talked about lately. But then he said, I've actually broached it with Ed Carpenter, and it sounds like it might be something that's a possibility. So it's far from done at this point, but it's an option that's on the table for both sides.
It makes sense to me, don't you think, PT? Because if you think about
he's a very good oval driver.
That car is going to run all year because Max is doing all the street and road courses and the 500. And to get the winners, the leader circle money, you have to do the entire championship. And he'll be a safe driver to put it there. He's a good driver. He won't wreck your cars, and he'll get you good results. So I totally think it's going to happen.
I believe last year as well that he really helped that team get pointed in the right direction. After Indianapolis, he came in and did some races with them, and they got running better.
Finished 6th at Gateway. That was a good run for them.
He had good oval runs. He had a good run at Iowa. He had a great run at Gateway, and kind of got them pointed in the right direction. And I think Trevor Carlin very much appreciates his ability behind the wheel and his feedback on the race car.
The other 2 drivers for the team car, that's not determined what's going to happen once the season starts, but in the number 31, Felipe Nasser, we saw him in earlier today doing an install lap, and then young Brazilian Sete Camara.
I spoke to Max yesterday, and he says both of those guys have some budget, but not enough to do the full season, and maybe that's a deal where they piece it together half and half. That's an option, but they'd prefer to run one guy, but you got to do what you got to do, and cars are rolling.
It's a good sound. Connor Daly peels out. We're not full go, but we have race cars on the racetrack, which is a good sign.
And a Penske there stalled getting out of the box.
Was it the newcomer or one of the veterans? They've got a guy that's spent one day in a Formula car basically in his life other than a Formula Ford type, and that's Scott McLaughlin.
Conditions now are worse than they were this morning. It was a little bit patchy wet. There was some dry spots this morning, but we've had a hard rain midday, and the track is fully wet now.
And the wind picked up too, actually.
I'll be honest and say I wouldn't know. I haven't been outside.
Well, I looked at the flags in the back straightaway. They were like blowing pretty hard.
When we went on the lunch break, I started to head outside, and I was advised, "No, you probably want to go sit back down. It's not real good outside right now." So we'll venture out and chat with some people a little later on. So that is the 55 of Palou, I believe, behind. And there's Zach Veach, turned around the wrong way. So even at creeping speed, it's very, very treacherous.
Kevin, I mean, those type of cars, actually, PT can help you with that. The worst feeling is when you're driving that slow. The car has no grip because we're relying on downforce. And we have none, especially with the cold tires.
The car's not making any downforce at these type of speeds. So the problem you have is it's so cold, you can't generate any tire temperature. The air temperature is cold. The track is cold. The track is wet. It's the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario.
The track is wet enough to get a little bit of a sense of what the visibility is going to be, especially for those second, third, and fourth in line. This is good right here. What's the spray going to do on the aero screens? How well can we see or not see?
You can hear the traction. There's virtually none. Cars spinning the tires up. Real tricky section here. This is really tight.
So while we watch these install laps, let's check in on pit lane one more time with Jake. It's pretty comfortable here. How is it outside, Jake?
You know, Kevin, I would say at this point we would list it as not as comfortable as inside the booth. Now, what's interesting, because in talking to Kara Adams, she had said, as Tony had said off the top as well, you guys were hearing him, it has to be basically that 100-degree combination between ambient temperature and track temperature, and we're essentially at the minimum of that right now as you take a look here as everybody is getting set. They did that install lap, and now we'll find out whether or not, in fact, anybody goes out and turns as Pato O'Ward fires up his engine here, any sort of significant track time. But the question I've got for Tony and for Paul, and that's this. We've talked about trying to take care of those, basically the tear-offs and that aero screen that you have here. What we have today, Kevin, realistically are conditions that we're not going to see very often throughout the course of the NTT IndyCar Series schedule. And that's not to say that we haven't had situations like this. I think about, of course, at the IndyCar Grand Prix, we had situations where the weather can be like this. Toronto and Detroit at times have been moist, but not necessarily this cool. So what sort of things, if any, can these teams and drivers learn about these cars that are applicable in conditions other than this? Or is this strictly a situation where you're working on things in the unlikely event that we see this weather replicated later in the course of the season? Otherwise, is anything learned today transferable over the course of the year?
Well, anything is, you can learn anything in these conditions, and we just saw Will Power right up the back of his teammate, and these conditions are going to vary from track to track because this is a very clean track. Detroit, when it rains there, that's a very dirty track. So it's going to be a different scenario if we have wet conditions, depending on where the racetrack is.
You're always learning something, right, PT? Like today, what they're doing, like Will and Newgarden right now, what they're doing, not Newgarden, sorry.
That's McLaughlin
That's
in the
McLaughlin.
2. And that's going to take us a moment because that's the car number and look that Newgarden had last year.
I'm the rookie here, so pardon me, my mistake. But they're actually now simulating the spray.
Yeah.
How they're actually going to give that information to IndyCar. But
well, you can see the spray that's on the camera.
Correct.
So that's what they're trying to figure out. Is that what I'm going to see when I'm driving behind another car? You see how the camera lens is.
And a lot of the guys are betting their brakes because it looks like the weather's going to be better tomorrow. So you try to prepare your car for the best case scenario. Do I think they're learning anything that they're going to use in the rain in the future? It's too early days. By the time we get to a place that it's raining, the engineers have done more testing. We have changed dampers already. We know the reaction of the car. It will be better. But, I mean, are we learning? Definitely we're learning something.
Well, McLaughlin's learning. Anytime he's going to get in a car, he's going to be learning something.
Correct.
Because he's got a lot to learn.
Well, the steering wheel buttons and the pedal shifts and stuff that he's not used to. Obviously, he does drive a car that is completely different, and the steering wheel is a completely different animal.
Race fans in America may not really have a sense of who Scott McLaughlin is. So he is from New Zealand. He's been racing in Australian supercars. So our lead host on NBC, Lee Diffie, is Australian and has followed supercars for a long time. And he tells me, listen, this guy is a superstar. He's good. He's known Scott forever. He won 18 races last year. He set records for wins. He's the real deal. And he's been wanting to come and race in America. There are some rumors whether he's going to end up at NASCAR, whether he's going to end up in IndyCar. Nothing is fully decided, but the first look is coming to IndyCar, and this is going to be fun to watch.
For sure.
So Will Power trying to see, he's following very close, trying to simulate what is it going to be like in a race situation following another car in the rain. If we see, once we get to other camera angles, like I said before, what these drivers are seeing is very similar to what you would see out of a camera lens that has rain on it.
I think I remember at Barber last year, in one of the first tests, Simon Pagenaud and Ryan Hunter-Reay, I believe, were together. And it was wet. And I think Simon said, I actually felt like visibility was a little better with this than it normally is.
Well, it's a bigger contact patch than a visor, right?
Yeah.
The visor, basically, for us, when it rains like this, you take all your tear-offs off, and you're basically wiping your visor every chance you can.
Yeah.
I think with the system, Simon was telling me that it's type of like they have this product that we put on the windscreen for the water to actually dissipate better. That they have that product, the Rain-X, on the tear-offs as well. So I guess it makes sense.
So McLaughlin running alone
right now. P1, he's done the most laps of anybody. He's continuing to circulate. Connor Daly. Nobody's really standing on the gas yet at all, though. Everybody's just feeling it out. Pato's giving it a little bit of the loud pedal.
Rinus VK's install lap, if you really want to know, was 13 seconds quicker than McLaughlin in power. Young guys, they're ready to go.
Ari Leyendyk is really high on this guy. He says this kid is the real deal.
I found out that actually following him on social media, 4 years ago his dad bought him an old Formula One car, and he's been testing the F1 car back in his home country.
Wow.
For a few years, so that's a good preparation.
Yes,
there.
it is. That's a good asset to have available.
I wonder if he'll adopt us.
Yeah, but I was like, I don't have a dad.
Yeah, I know.
And there's Rinus VK in the number 21 this year for Ed Carpenter Racing. Good to hear the sound of race cars and Indy cars specifically once again.
Growing up in Europe, obviously, he's probably had a lot of rain time on junior formula and go-karting, so right now you can see he's hustling the car around pretty good here.
His full official name is Rinus van Kalmthout, and when he started racing in America, he understood that most of us Americans might struggle with that, so he shortened it to Rinus VK, is what he's known as now in America. And he and Oliver Askew have had great battles over the last few years in the road to Indy. He was second to Askew for the championship in 2017 in USF 2000, beat him to win the 2018 Indy Pro 2000, then Pro Mazda title, and then finished a close second in Indy Lights last year. So Rinus VK is still a teenager, 19 years old, and is in his first year in IndyCar.
Red flag out now. I wonder if somebody's spun or...
It might be because this is the end of the 10-minute planned time for the install segment, and next, after they all come to pit road, will be an assessment if we are ready to fully release the group. There's Alex Palou. Is that almost a pinkish color, or is that red? It's hard to tell on our monitor, and I actually have not seen this car in person yet.
I think it's red, just the camera.
Yeah.
No, it's pink. I went to see
Saw
it. It's bright pink. Kind of a flat pink color, and the car is like a flat charcoal gray. Pretty striking car.
Alex said that I asked him what the Super Formula Series cars in Japan were like. He said it's around 650 horsepower. It's similar and actually lighter. Feels a little more nimble. This one is a little bit more difficult to drive. He really feels like one thing here is I think the driver can make more of a difference with an Indy car than he can in what he's been used to.
I raced the Super Formula cars in Japan after I won the championship in 04. I know it's a different car now, but at the time they were a little bit quicker because they were lighter than us. But of course, they don't race in the ovals. We can have a lighter car like that. Otherwise, if something happens in the ovals, we'll actually get hurt. So
much softer spec tire on that car as well. The tire is quite a bit softer. So
and Team Go, the partner with Dale Coyne Racing, won Le Mans as a privateer team in 2004. Tom Christensen, another TK, was one of the drivers on that team. A lot of TKs. Tommy Kendall, Tony Kanaan.
Tommy Kendall is the original.
Is he the original?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I hope I can be the second to TK, the real TK.
And by the way, the engineer for this car is someone you basically lived half your life.
I know very well.
You know Eric Cowden pretty well from basically your first day in America.
Yeah, we
go back with Eric Cowden.
We won everything together. We won the championship. We won the 500. He was with me until at the end of last year. And when I decided that I was not going to do a full season, he needed a full-time job.
That's a good get for Dale Coyne Racing because they've
had
awesome.
He's awesome. I love the guy. We won everything together, and I'm the godfather of his daughter. We're family, so I'm really happy. I haven't seen him here yet. Being extremely busy with this TV thing that you guys got me going here. I think, and he's good with rookies. If you think about it, he had me, then he had Cristiano D'Amata.
Okay.
Then he went to IndyCar. He had me as a rookie. And you name it. And he had Felipe Giafoni as a rookie in the IRL back in the day.
Okay.
I mean, he worked with a lot of rookies in his career. So he has the experience, and I think he's going to help the kid a lot.
That's one of the big changes with Dale Coyne Racing. Not only is Sebastian Bourdais gone, but a major shakeup in engineering. First of all, Michael Cannon was the engineer of the 19 car. Now he's Scott Dixon's engineer. He's with Chip Ganassi Racing, and Craig Hampson has gone to Arrow McLaren as overseeing there. He's not specifically on a car. He's overseeing both cars, and he'll engineer a third car for the Indianapolis 500, assuming they put a program together. So Olivier Bousson steps up to become a lead engineer once again for Santino Ferrucci on the 18 car, and Eric Cowden is on what is now the 55 car, previously the number 19 entry.
And interesting because Olivier and Eric worked together with me at KV when we won the 500. Olivier was my second engineer and my damper guy, and Eric was my engineer with Matt Curry. So basically, they made big changes, but those guys are familiar with each other, which is actually easier when you bring a new guy to a team to get, to accommodate the guy in the team, get to know everybody. They know everybody. They know each other extremely well.
So Scott Dixon in the PNC Bank car. It's the first day of the new IndyCar season, but Scott's already taken part in 2 races and has already won another race.
That's just Scott, right?
He won the Rolex 24 with Wayne Taylor Racing. Ryan Briscoe, one of his teammates in that car, and then he raced at Bathurst the very next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to him. He went straight from Daytona to Bathurst, and he was telling me that the car that he drove there, it was a handful.
Yeah.
It was a little loose, and but he enjoyed it a lot. He would love to come back, and he's been busy. He's been, we went to visit him a couple weeks ago. He just has a brand new baby boy. Him and Emma, Kit is his name, the cutest baby. Because usually, Kevin, I have to say, when we had our kids and you post a picture, people say, how cute. Babies are not cute. You know what I mean? They're not. They're just not. And this one is actually cute.
So Poppy and Tilly have a little brother. What's kind of scary for Scott, there's a sim at PitFit, and for their, I guess it was the Christmas party. I went to that.
Did you see them driving?
I walked in there, and Poppy was in the sim, and I took a picture and showed it to Scott and said, uh-oh. She was pretty good, by the way, as you might expect.
Well, I'm just glad that any of my sons are racing, so they're not going to race another Dixon in their lives,
Are you going to try to keep them out of go-karts?
I can't try to keep them out. I gave my 12-year-old, I gave Leo the opportunity. He's like, it's okay. Deco, my 5-year-old, loves it.
Yeah.
Obviously, he lives with us full time. He sees it. So if they ask me, I'm not going to say no. Is it my preference? Not really.
Yeah.
But if that's what they want to do, I'm not going to. But I'm going to try not to be those dads. I'll be there in the grandstand. I'll probably hire PT as a driver coach.
Okay.
He'll take them to the track. I said, he'll
He's
deal with them.
expensive.
Well, I know that. Well, at that point, Towson is going to be running the race team, and we're going to be driving for Towson, making a lot of money, right, PT?
Yeah. Felix Rosenquist car and the NTT data entry for Chip Ganassi Racing. Let's
That's
check
a
in again.
good-looking car.
That is a good-looking car. Let's check in again with Jake.
No, the red flag came. It was more. Now we are back.
Well, when it's this wet, there are technical challenges as well. So we'll get that addressed, and we'll hear from Jake again coming up in just a little while.
I just got a fun fact from our friend at home, Marshall Pruitt. It says the car at Dale Coyne, it's hot pink.
Okay.
They call it hot pink. It's actually the owner livery for Mr. Goth that he used in Le Mans with McLaren Formula One in 1990s. So in
nice.
the 1990s.
Nice.
So that has a reason for it. Can you hear the rain?
Hot pink, chartreuse. We got all kinds of new colors around the pink.
I think there's some pink on the Jack Harvey campaign
Correct,
as well.
yeah,
Their Drive
the
Pink
AutoNation
campaign with AutoNation that they continue. Well, in about a month, we'll be ready to go again in St. Pete for the season opener for the 2020 NTT IndyCar season with the Firestone Grand Prix. Tickets are available. GPStPete.com. The great thing is there are some places you would love to sit in the grandstand, but just always walk around and find the different
I'll be there walking around. Come see me.
Yeah. Find the different aspects and
on the street
places
course.
to
I mean, it's
see.
also. I tell every fan that hasn't experienced a street course race, go to a corner if you can get as closest to the wall and the fence as you can to understand how fast we're going.
Especially the corner coming onto the straightaway. That little chicane jog at St. Pete onto the back straightaway. That's breathtaking.
You know, that chicane, it's 6 gear flat out in our cars today.
Wow.
It's about 160 miles an hour flat out.
Tony Kanaan, Paul Tracy, Jake Query, Katie Hargett. Thanks for joining us here today from Circuit of the Americas. It's a wet and chilly day, but we're still optimistic for more activity today from Austin.
It all starts here. The Firestone Grand Prix roars through the streets of beautiful downtown St. Petersburg. March 13th through 15th, the NTT IndyCar Series headlines an action-packed weekend of racing under the sun. What a move!
Lowest moment there.
Advance tickets start at $25. The Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Light 'em up, baby! March 13th through 15th. Get tickets at gpstpete.com. Miller Lite Carb Day kicks off Indy 500 weekend with rock legends REO Speedwagon and Styx. Friday, May 22nd at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. See on-track action and the Pit Stop Challenge. Followed by REO Speedwagon and Styx live in concert. Tickets at ims.com. Don't miss that Carb Day feeling. Firestone Legends Day returns to Indy 500 weekend, headlined by country music sensation Luke Bryan. Live in concert at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Saturday, May 23rd. Kick off summer with Luke Bryan live at the Brickyard Memorial Day weekend. That's my kind of night. Buy your tickets now and save at ims.com.
There's nothing quite like it.
The goosebumps when the engine's rev.
The bass line in your chest.
The thunder of 300,000.
The energy.
You can feel it in the air.
The taste of ice cold milk. The whole city coming alive.
Being a part of it all.
Passing down tradition. Pure adrenaline. Pure speed. Pure speed.
Pure speed.
That feeling. That feeling. That feeling.
That feeling.
That feeling.
That May feeling.
So we continue to wait and hope for better conditions. The rain has picked up here, and the forecast is calling for rain for the next couple of hours. So we will wait for more information if we're going to see some activity today here at Circuit of the Americas. Meanwhile, thoughts turn to May, and the IndyCar GMR Grand Prix is the label for the road course race to kick off the month of May at Indianapolis. 2 qualifying days. Miller Lite Carb Day, Firestone Legends Day, and of course the 104th running of the Indianapolis 500 presented by Gainbridge on NBC for the second time coming up this year, and coverage all month via NBC Sports Gold, NBCSN, and NBC Sports. All right, we're being told there is a team manager meeting coming up in about 5 minutes, so that's when I think we will get information if we're done today and what a schedule might look like tomorrow.
Series probably wants to talk to the teams. Nobody's really taking the opportunity to run. It has now started raining harder, which probably means the temperature has dropped. So they will formulate a game plan here and figure out how we move forward.
Yeah, it's raining hard. There's a look at the radar. It's going to rain for a little while, and just the problem is it's never going to be dry today or likely even dry enough to learn a whole lot. TK, I think they've learned today what they're probably going to learn or at least some have. They've got out there, they've got a chance to do their install, make sure everything is buttoned up correctly, and to get a little taste of the aero screen and getting in and out of the car and how it works in the rain.
I mean, everybody got their installation lap done. I'm assuming that the entire grid did. And to be honest, they know they have an extra day. Tomorrow's supposed to be better. Maybe even the morning of Thursday morning. So they're not going to risk it. If you do something silly today because you're trying to run, they go green and somebody crashes, that can be a lot more damage for your progress and trying to run a car the next couple of days. So I'm telling you what, if I was a driver, I wouldn't be running today.
Yeah. I just don't know that there's a lot that you're going to learn, especially when you've got a full day tomorrow coming up with hopefully
that guy
some
right
dry.
there with no rocket. He knows what's going on.
He's one of the people back in the garage area we can see on our monitors in the studio. Meanwhile, you get a great look at that tower. I opened up our broadcast last year on top of that tower, and I'm not afraid of heights, but
I've never been there.
That clear glass below is just a little bit
I've
spooky.
never been there, so I should take a trip.
We did pre-race up there.
Yeah, that's
last
right.
year, and I was surprised. That thing was moving around a little bit. There was a lot of people up there. There was probably 80 or 90 people up on that deck, and we were trying to film, and it was a little bit more wobbly than I would have liked up there.
See, things that you don't do, like me, and so I'm going to try to go up there before we leave.
That will be a new
run
experience.
The stairs. I took the elevator.
Yeah, I'll take the stairs, and I'll record it and send it to you guys.
So you'll be at all the races this year. Tony Kanaan, Paul Tracy, Kevin Lee, thanks for joining us inside the booth here at Circuit of the Americas. It's been a long time since you've been to a race as an observer. That's going to be odd.
I actually want to take the opportunity to thank you guys for letting me do this. I was extremely concerned starting today how I was going to feel. Obviously, this is new to me. I've done this for 22 years, and I've never been outside of a race car in this series watching other people.
Yeah.
So last night I was actually a little bit anxious. I didn't know how sad or happy I was going to be, and you guys made me feel great. So we have a lot of plans for this year. Obviously, I'm doing the 5 ovals, but I'm coming to every race. We're going to try to activate with IndyCar. Roger made sure that, you need a proper farewell. And I said, I don't need anything. I don't owe IndyCar. I owe you guys something. What can I do? So I'm going to do all the autograph sessions with the drivers. Apparently, that's what they want me to do. We're going to be more engaged with the fan zone. So we're going to try to actually, between us, Firestone, and NTT, which it is my personal sponsor, are coming up with some ideas. Big Machine Vodka, it's one of my other sponsors. They're going to be doing a lot of things at the racetrack for me. So I guess, my biggest concern, Kevin, when I went to tell my sponsors that I was only going to do 5 races, after telling them that I was going to be on for the full year, it was like, what are we going to do now? Because, you're not, the budget is going to have to change. And they said, actually, everybody said, great, we're going to have more of Tony Kanaan. And I was like, okay. So NTT is going to come up with something. They have plenty of guests there, Bryant and 7-Eleven. All my sponsors are actually, they said, we're not changing anything. Can we have more of you? So I guess I'm going to be a lot busier than actually just driving the car. And you guys just told me that today. I experienced the TV live today. There is a lot of sitting around. You guys have no idea what, these guys, they really work. I used to have fun for 23 years. Now I'm working, I guess.
You're gonna gain some weight because there's a lot of sitting around.
No, I'm not.
Waiting and eating.
No, I'm not. I was
a
up.
lot of snacks are available.
I was up 4:30 this morning, and I ran 7 miles before I came here. And when we go off air 6:30 tonight, I'm back in the gym, so I'm not gaining any weight, bro.
Good for you. It's been great to have you with us today. Let's check in with Jake Query now.
Here is the thing. What remains to be seen is whether it actually is 6:30 before Tony Kanaan will be able to get out onto a treadmill. And that's because, Kevin, as you can see behind me here, Paul Tracy, you had talked about it, the fact that the team managers have come together here for a meeting. Nothing imminent has come out of it just yet, but as I had mentioned earlier, Kevin, the combined temperature now between the 47 degrees of track temperature, 46 degrees of ambient temperature, and that temperature is not increasing. Doesn't necessarily get to that magic 100-degree combination just yet. So what they're determining here, I think, is whether or not this session for today has come to a conclusion, and if that's the case, whether or not this test here at the Circuit of the Americas extends in and beyond Wednesday. That's not necessarily within my pay grade to know or understand, but I think those things are in play. But nothing official just yet, because you can see they're casual conversations right now. I think everybody just kind of talking, figuring out. Keep in mind, there is a test for some of these teams at the Texas Motor Speedway at the end of the week, so maybe that comes into play as well. No official word just yet, Kevin, but we'll let you know as soon as we find out, if it happens to be before you find out up in the booth, what exactly the schedule will be for the remainder of today.
And I think that's solid information and a good perspective for Jay Fry and IndyCar to take. Let's talk to the team managers. Hey, do you guys want to stay Thursday? Because there's obviously extra expense for everyone involved, changing flights, extra hotels. Is it worth it for you? How many of you would do that if we decide that's an option?
And this is something that has been great since Jay took over the IndyCar operations, because the communication has improved a lot. Not just with the team managers, but with the drivers. So Jay does a really good job saying, okay, we're going to make this decision together. And we'll see. You see them talking right now. Basically, they're just, obviously some teams have to test Friday in Texas, but Texas is not that far. If you only do Thursday morning, you have the mechanics that have time to turn the cars around to the oval setup. The trucks to drive to Texas. Texas has lights. We race at night there. Maybe they won't start in the morning. They actually want to start testing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 10 o'clock at night. So all the logistics are being set. Having said that, my opinion, this is my personal opinion, I think they would decide to stay here, and whoever's testing in Texas, if you can't make it, you can't. I'm pretty sure Penske will make it because they have the means and the mechanics to do it. Because we do have Richmond and we have the Indianapolis test on April 24th. That is another 2 ovals that, if people that haven't had a chance to test, they will get a chance to test.
Yeah, the weather is obviously better tomorrow, but it looks even better again on Thursday. So if there's an opportunity to run in good weather on Thursday, I think you'll see a lot of teams take that opportunity because they need the test time with this car.
And another factor is that some teams were sharing the car, with one driver getting today, another tomorrow, and that makes it much more challenging if it's just one day. Because one thought would be, if we get 4 hours of dry track time tomorrow, that's enough, and it's the same for everybody, but it's just another factor to consider that might lead them to thinking about staying an extra day.
And I think the teams that have 2 drivers, if they do the right thing, they will prioritize who is the most experienced driver that can help the team.
Yeah.
And they will give that guy more time in the seat and then put the second driver if they have time another day.
So that's what's being decided right now, presumably, with IndyCar officials and team managers down in the garage area here at Circuit of the Americas. So the biggest news leading into this season has nothing to do with what's on track or specifically with drivers and combinations and so forth, and we haven't really addressed it so far. It was in November. The startling news and the best-kept secret we've seen in a long time in motorsports, that Roger Penske and his group was acquiring the assets of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, IndyCar, and IMS Productions, and that became official in January. Paul, what was your reaction then? And now that you've had a couple of months to think about it, what does Roger Penske's group, Penske Entertainment, taking over the series and the Speedway, what kind of impact does that have moving forward?
Well, I think it's massive. Obviously, it was a surprise to everybody. It seemed to happen quite quickly, and there was an opportunity for Roger to acquire the Speedway, and I think he jumped at that. And the deal came together quite quickly. So obviously caught a lot of people by surprise, but, I think Penske's, the way he operates all of his businesses across the board, if you've ever been to one of his car dealerships and seen the presentation of his race teams, been to one of his factories where he builds the diesel engines, you can eat off the floor of any of those places. So his presentation and his professionalism will trickle over into this series, and I feel it'll make it a very viable place for sponsors to say, you know what, Roger Penske owns that. I'm going to take a look at that.
A little fun fact for you guys. You guys don't know this, but I had a meeting with Mark Miles and Roger Penske to tell them the news of my plans for this year. And Roger says, well, I'll come see you at so-and-so because I got a couple things to do. We meet. And the story was they went through every single bathroom at the Speedway, which is a total of 168, if I'm not mistaken, with Doug Bowles. And he was checking every one of them because he wants to make them all the same and what the improvements needs to be made. So that's what PT is saying. I mean, I think the fans are going to benefit more than anybody else as far as even the facility, the way he likes to run things, the way, I mean, Tracy was there for a long time. I've never actually worked for Roger, but I see the way he presents his team. I mean, his motorhome here at the paddock has a carbon fiber stairwell. So it's
first class.
First class. It's not aluminum. It's carbon fiber. You can build a full race car out of just the steps of his motorhome.
Wow. The Holman George family has done a fantastic job as the steward for basically 3/4 of a century, and a lot of us were very sad to see that relationship come to an end. But as I've always said, if it was ever going to change hands, this is who you want running it. And so
100%.
happy to see so many members of the Holman George family. We're still going to see them at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and have an involvement of everything that's going on.
That was a hard thing, I feel, for Tony to do, because you saw the emotion that he had in the press conference, and he came to tears over the decision to do this. But ultimately, it's probably the right thing to do. But it was a hard thing to do.
I think at the end it wasn't just Tony's decision. If unfortunately you have a board and you have the whole family that needs to make a decision, and I'm pretty sure that look, Tony made mistakes, but he got a lot of things right, but he was passionate about the sport. There isn't anybody that I don't think that can say he was not trying to grow the sport. So it was a pretty hard day for him, I'm assuming.
All right, we've just been given word. It is official. The day is done today for the first of 2 days scheduled at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. So we'll stay tuned. We may get information before we finish up of what the schedule is for tomorrow, but otherwise I would say check your local listings, check IndyCar.com, social media channels. This is the plan as of now, 10 to noon. That is Eastern time, so 9 o'clock Central time, local time, and then 1 until 5, noon to 4 Central time tomorrow, and that is all subject to change.
Are we going to the gym, the three of us?
I'm out. I have a flight at 6:30. So listen, I've shown you the ropes here as a rookie.
Okay.
I need you see how the energy that I bring. I need you to keep the energy. The cadence needs to stay high.
Listen to me tomorrow. Let me know how I do. Text us tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm not done. I've got my local radio show coming up tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern. Plug for 1070 The Fan, 107.5 FM in Indianapolis.
I'll listen from the treadmill.
You be listening. TK, thank you. Thanks to Jake Query, Katie Hargett. For Paul Tracy, I'm Kevin Lee. Make sure you join us on these same outlets tomorrow via the IndyCar app, IndyCar.com, for the preseason spring training open test for the 2020 NTT IndyCar Series.